Hello to lovely YouTube. I'm still looking at the Archetypes Guidebook and I'm looking at Thanatos today. What does Thanatos mean? I'm going to find out. It's one of the initiations, which according to this book is a very important card. So I'm doing the rest of the initiations before I read any of the other cards. There are limitless ways to use this deck. Reading the cards for yourself or someone else is only one possibility. Below are additional ideas. I hope you find many more along the way. Archetypal study. Grasping the concept of what archetypes are and how archetypal energy moves can be challenging at first. For that reason, feel free to use this deck as a learning tool. Think of it as a set of mystical flashcards, helping you learn a new archetypal language. Get to know the overriding archetypes that dominate your life, your town, your social group, your culture. Get comfortable with the terms and the Greek terms on the trump cards and let the concepts challenge you, stump you and stretch your mind. That is their job. And Thanatos is one of what this writer calls the trump cards, like the major arcana. Okay, let's have a little look at it, shall we? Thanatos. It is tempting. Now you can't see that I've got the card on there because they're both black and white. It is tempting to oversimplify death and sum it up as transformation. But the true archetypal resonance of Thanatos cannot be easily assimilated or contained. Death is ongoing and omnipresent, an eternal response to the gift of birth. Witnessing the ending of another being, a creature, a phase or stage, has deep consequences for the psyche. We are forever changed by Thanatos as it sweeps us under its wings, making us relinquish control in every form. It leaves a mark of ash upon our hearts, signifying we have touched the cusp of the underworld and will return to the land of the living eventually, with more compassion and wisdom to share. This capacity is needed in our world, and one who has faced the annihilation of Thanatos can face anything. When this card appears, it signifies an initiation into the underworld, and this card represents grieving, mourning, bearing witness to all that is. Facing Thanatos, death, leads us to Aletheia, the truth. Live every day if it's your last. What would we do if we did that? There are those with a great gift for navigating Thanatos energy. Thankfully, we find these generous souls in emergency rooms, hospitals, hospice centres and the like. Yep, people work in hospitals, people who work in the mortuary, people who work in the funeral parlours, the undertakers, people who organise funerals, which is, you know, the ritual, the actual recognition of the passing of that person. And there's the dealing with the death, isn't there, which is really one of life's challenges, because depending on how we think and feel about death is how we deal with it when it arrives. See, some people deny death their entire life. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to watch films that involve people dying, the characters die. They can't even handle imaginary people dying, right? And they don't like to hear about people they don't know dying. They don't like to talk about death. They don't like to acknowledge that one day they will be dying. They don't like to think that of their loved ones dying. Right now, no one wants to think of a loved one as dying. Of course not. That's not a natural place to want to be in. But death is as natural as birth, right? And I feel, particularly in the UK, that we've got an area missing in our cultural development where we accept the end of life. It has to come to everyone, and how we treat people at the end. Because what we do is we try and keep people alive no matter what, right? It doesn't matter how bad they're feeling, whether they want to be alive or not. We insist, don't we? We insist. It's just like animals, when they come to the end of their life, owners insist on dragging it out and keeping them alive with medication and pills and operations for as long as possible. And that poor little creature has to suffer because the owner can't let go. You know, just literally purely because the owner has got emotional attachment and they're going to be upset when the creature dies. The vet will do everything it can to keep the animal suffering. And then if you haven't processed your thoughts and feelings around death and grieving, when you're faced with an unexpected death, it can cut you to the quick because you're not prepared for those feelings that are going to come. I mean, it's bad enough if you are prepared, right? Even if you're prepared for death and you've thought about it and you've given it long, hard consideration, you think you're ready. The reality is, when you're faced with a death, that emotion that washes over you, no one can prepare you for the feeling of pain of unexpected loss, unexpected death, the grief and the shock of that. Now, when you get news of a death, you're faced with the same shock, aren't you? So if you have anticipated death and you know someone's going to die, you've got a little bit of time to prepare. Doesn't make it any better, it's just a different experience. You've got time to be able to grieve alongside that person, which might make the whole thing worse. There's no way of knowing, is there? Because again, we only have one life experience of that person's passing, and depending on that individual and that person, how they're handling it and how they cope with their own death, you know, it's just so hard for everyone involved with that, because how the person feels about their life and how the person feels about not wanting to let go of their loved ones, it must feel very powerless, mustn't it, for everyone? And depending on how controlling you are, and most people, when it comes to life and death situations, suddenly become very controlling and very clinging on to, determined to hang on to that individual and that person. When it's life and death situation, we all have within us the archetype of a person who will cling to life and fight tooth and nail to stay here with their loved ones for as long as possible. It's just what happens. It's part of nature's way. You don't want to leave people, you don't want to leave them grieving, but it's dragging it out, really making it any better for the person that's watching you suffer? Don't know, because by the time they get to the end of it, it's sort of a relief that the person is no longer suffering. So that, I suppose, the longer they suffer while they're here, that's got to ease the healing process a bit, because you've got that to cling on to. At least they're not suffering now. But you know, is that really any consolation? We're not having that one because we literally had it a moment ago. Excuse the noise of the traffic going past. I've opened the windows in an attempt to cool down. Oh yeah, that's what I was saying before the phone rang. It's against all the rules to open the windows in the heat, apparently. You're supposed to just keep the hot air out. But there was a breeze and I could hear it, and I felt like I needed to allow that air in to circulate, right? And we're talking about death, and I was reminded of the life of the wind. There's life everywhere you look, and when you've suffered from a bereavement or death of another person, you don't want to know about life that's still going on, do you? Right, so we're going to talk about bereavement. So we're going to lighten the mood by using the little elephants, because the elephants are a reminder. That's it, the elephants are a reminder of the life that was here, because elephants never forget, do they? They don't, and we never forget. And while a person is not forgotten, they're still here with us. They're still here spiritually. I'm going to do the white elephant first. I'm going to move the jade elephant and the little amethyst / lilac elephant. It's not perfect. There's a not perfect person in spirit. And this person was as clear as you like. Okay, so let's see what cards around death are here for the white elephant. There's the elk. Celebrate your accomplishments with humility. You are crowned with success. Powerful forces guide you. Your ability to conquer challenges is limited. I'm not sure what sort of person is humble around death. Maybe humble Humility is something that happens when you're faced with death and befuddled and not knowing what to do in the face of death, confusion, depression. These are all natural places for a person to go. It's part of the process. It's feeling out of control and like you haven't got a choice about this. Yeah, that's something else people are faced with. And looking for a miracle in the situation, asking for a miracle. And of course, that is exactly what doesn't happen, isn't it, with death? There's no miracle of reprieve. We know that death is going to happen, and we know that it's going to happen to us as well. King of Wands and the King of Swords, 2 kings. That's very powerful. 7 of Cups, the emotional state, the 6 of Pentacles, and the breakthrough. Okay, so the pain that comes from knowing somebody has gone, there's no escape from that. You cannot get away from the emotional states and the emotional stages that you have to go through. You can't escape it, no matter what you thought of the person, no matter what relationship you had with them when they were on the planet. The idea of their death and their passing will still leave you bereft and confused and befuddled, like that little Mad March hare there. And then there's the argument that has to go on over the money, often. That's another added, it's like an added, sometimes it's an added task to do to take your mind off the pain and the heartache, and it helps people to focus on the material things in order to cope with the loss. But it is only just delaying the idea that you have to come to terms with the passing of this person. And then you have a breakthrough through the darkness, through the grief. One day you look up and you remember, hold on a minute, there's life going on. The life that you've been ignoring going on is still there, going on. The sun still comes up, the flowers are still flowering, the birds are still chirping, the spring comes, the summer comes, the autumn happens, and before you know it, it's another Christmas, and you've got to deal with all the routine of what you normally did at Christmas, but without this person. But you have a breakthrough, you recognise that you're still here, going through the motions, and then it becomes easier because you recognise that there's more for you to experience. But the whole thing is an extremely painful process. And dear little person that's had this experience, I'm sorry that you've had this experience, but know that it will get better. And you know what they say about time being a great healer? That is true. It is true. And I remember saying this on a previous reading, that time might not be able to heal all the pain, but the pain will become less magnified. So it won't be the first thing that you feel when you wake up in the morning. It might be the second or third thing you feel, but it won't be there as something that's stopping you from going out because you're feeling so bad. Okay, let me know if you feel this is anything to do with you, dear loved one watching. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Right, we're going to leave that little white elephant there because I believe that is a little white elephant in spirit. And we're going to bring over the green jade elephant to join the white elephant, because what happens is when people pass over to spirit, they go and join with their other loved ones, don't they? That are already there. Lynx, keeper of secrets. Take time out from the world and be the observer. Nothing can deceive you when you trust your knowing. You see others' secrets and keep them sacred. In silence and solitude you will find your strength. Okay, so often when people die, bear in mind this is about death, this Thanatos, often when people die, secrets come to light, don't they? You know, you heard that phrase, they take it to their grave with them. Forgiveness. Okay, forgiving a person who's passed away. Forgiving someone who's no longer with us. Because not forgiving them is not causing them any pain, is it? It's only causing you pain. So the power of forgiveness. Once a person's passed away, that is the time to forgive, not what they did, but just forgive the person. It's time to let that go. So there's lots of ag and grief around this relationship with this person, and it's not doing you any good. the High Priestess. Yeah, as a person who has had to deal with legal issues after somebody has died, which is really common. The Eight of Pentacles, dealing with the money and the arguing about the money, and having a massive challenge around it, having a massive challenge just around the aftermath of a person passing and the death. And look at this, having to deal with the money. Nine of Pentacles, finding it very hard even to reach just the getting through the simplest of tasks around sorting the mess out with the money. But the Three of Wands suggests that your ship is going to come in. It will, once you've gone through the drama of it all. The Sun card around the housing and a new vision. So this person that suffered this loss has lost a person who wasn't particularly pleasant, or they had a happy relationship when they were on the planet, and when they went, they created a mess with the money and left a lot of arguing and sorting out to do. Now look at this person, this vision, this left arm heading up towards the light, and this person also with the same left arm heading up towards the light. This one, the left arm being lifted up, is a very similar position. So it's put a person in a position of reaching up for something that they believe that they can grasp hold of, that they can bring down to themselves, but it looks like it's not there. So what they thought they were going to be able to hang on to is gone. And what these cards are asking you to do is to let go of that, let go of the hanging on to something that's no longer there, and to try and create a new vision. Now you may not be ready for this, dear loved one that's lost a person, depending on how much time has passed and where your emotional state is. Now in these cards, there are no emotional cards here. There's no emotional state to be seen apart from the forgiveness, which suggests that there's a lot of hard feelings still. And you can keep your wisdom. You don't have to share your insights with everyone. You just hang on to it yourself. Just know you can watch what other people are doing, and you can see them for who they are. Forgive that alarm going past. What is the answer to this for you? The challenge here for you is to keep your mouth shut. Okay, so obviously the whole thing is a challenge. Dealing with this mess that's been left behind is a challenge. And it is a challenge that's left you feeling as if you shouldn't have had to do that, and why is it still happening? So there's still a feelings of sort of annoyance, irritation that this person has left this situation and you've been unable to sort it out, and it should have been so much easier than it has been, and it's just made everything difficult. And I don't feel like it was intentional. The person didn't do it intentionally to harm you or directing the pain at you or deliberately to make it difficult for you. It's just the person didn't give much thought to anyone other than themselves, and that included you. Okay, so know that you will get through this, because the Three of Wands is your ship coming in. And when you've got over the anger and the upset and the hurt and the pain, you will feel better. But it's getting to that point, isn't it? Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Okay, little pink elephant, amethyst elephant. You're going to join your brothers and sisters. This is a spiritual person looking at death. Okay, how do spiritual people look at death? Surrender and release are people that are ready to let it go. Okay, surrender and release. They give over to the idea that they haven't got a choice about this, and they understand the power of the herd, the power of love, the power of kindness, and rising above earthly matters. Glide through life with grace. You are able to see the right path. Stand tall in your self-worth and love with a big heart. Okay, it can be problematic when somebody can cope with death easier than others, okay? Because other people might look at you and feel you're being harsh, okay? Here's an angel for you. That's a beautiful card, isn't it, for someone who is very spiritual and understanding of death, and they've got a deep understanding of it, and they've got a lot of experience of it. you have to just remind yourself that just because you know the spiritual path that a person who's passing over is taking, not everyone else is fortunate enough to have the same information, and other people around you are suffering from deep sorrow because they feel like it's the end. They're not aware of the spiritual journey that soul has gone on. Okay, so there's other people around you that are younger in their soul. There's an 8 of Wands there as well, so you've got 2 8 of Wands. 2 8 of Wands, 1 Fool, 1 Tower, 1 Princess of Pentacles, and Control. Okay, so there's people that are trying to control the situation, trying to control the material situation, and you, in your spiritual nature, you know that the love and the power of love and the power of the spiritual journey that the person's gone on is what matters. You know that the person's moved on to the next step. You know the person's in spirit, and yet you are surrounded by people who don't understand your easy acceptance of this death because they're so focused on the material world, and so they are judging you that you don't care. They feel like because you're not sobbing and crying and upset and distraught like they are, that you don't feel the loss. But because of your spiritual nature and your understanding, you found your way through that path quicker than they have, and also through a smoother path of understanding. And the control aspect comes from they're upset because they are faced with the ultimate control that they haven't got, or the realisation that they have no control. And it just shakes them to the core because they're not as spiritually evolved as you. They haven't got that emotional depth to be able to let go the same way that you can. Okay, because you're over there doing your surrender and release. You understand your spiritual nature. You understand that we're part of nature and that death is part of that life process. And these people over here haven't come to terms with that yet, either because this is their first experience on life, right, on earth, and because they believe in the power of the material world. So you just have to keep doing you. Know that you are linking up with angelic realms and information and a spiritual vibration that is just not available to these people yet. Doesn't mean it won't be available to them, but right now they're just not on the same wavelength as you, and it's absolutely pointless trying to get them to be. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.